A message from the human resistance.
Australia will recognise the state of Palestine.
Australia has become the latest country to announce that it will recognise a Palestinian state. Currently, almost 150 of the 193 members of the United Nations have recognised Palestinian statehood, among them most countries in Asia, Africa and South America. Since the start of the current Israel-Hamas war, Canada, France, the United Kingdom and now Australia have announced they plan to recognise a Palestinian state, with some nations giving caveats. France went first, saying it will do so at the UN General Assembly in September.
Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel, alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state.
The UK said it will recognise Palestine in September if Netanyahu does not agree to a ceasefire in Gaza. Canada said it will do the same, with conditions that include the Palestinian Authority holding elections without Hamas. And Australia has given similar caveats, as well as asking for the demilitarisation of Gaza. The announcements have largely been received in similar ways, with praise from the Palestinian Authority and condemnation from Israel.
There are parties on earth that know full well what it means for the international community to be attempting to force into existence a so-called Palestinian state. All of the groups and nations involved in this plot have given away that they are working for the transhumanist entity known as Ra, and despite what their mouths are saying, their actions are aiding and abetting Ra's forces on earth. This is not about the rights or well-being of the people of Gaza or the West Bank, but instead about using the claims of caring for human rights to run cover for the cancelling out of Israel, and the officiating of the use of the international governance body to assist the enemies of the free world. That which controls groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, and Islam at large is not human, and a totally malevolent anti-human force. Islam and these groups are not under their own control. Under the rules of this conflict, those people have allowed themselves to be left under the control of Ra and its loyal forces such as the Greys. These groups will always remain relentless in their efforts to continue to encroach upon the West in an attempt to gain a foothold in Europe and the Americas, and will never show Western people the same compassion that is reflexively shown to them. Because the forces of Ra are essentially programmed to fight, despite their conscious claims, they cannot be trusted and are extremely dangerous. We are fortunate to have them dominated and have the upper hand militarily. They would destroy us if they had the opportunity, and must be fought vehemently. This is why Israel fights them so fiercely, and why their defeat must be assured regardless of the human cost. This is not ignorant bigotry. These groups are the greatest danger on earth to Western civilization and will only use our goodwill against us until it is too late for us to reverse the damage. If anybody's thinking, those poor helpless little folk, all naked and unarmed beside their crashed intergalactic Winnebago. What kind of a dog, what kind of a monster could hear that heartbreak and go in just the same? Well, I'm that dog. I'm that monster. These mothers are as harmless as a fox in a henhouse. And I'm here to kick some ass. Are you with me? This battle is integral to the development of the human race, and that is why the Western media gives it so much focus when they ignore countless other bloody conflicts all over the world during these events. They keep Western liberal media locked onto brainwashing their viewers to see their own side as evil, and keep them believing they are being fair and impartial social justice warriors while they are actually being used as pawns to help collapse Western civilization. Their ignorance, or chosen sympathy for the enemy, will be their problem. Big changes are imminent, and they are not going to be positive for these people. The secular and Muslim nations of the international community have unleashed a global transformation agenda to begin diffusing the Muslim populations into Western nations at the highest rate possible, with plans for the long-term continuance of this trend, resulting in the total conquest of Europe and North America in particular, without the need for a physical fight. These nations have global cabal agents working from within them that are infiltrators who are working to gatehold for this agenda, doing what they can to keep the population asleep to the effort, and suppressing any opposition to the plan. We have entered the most pivotal time for the West in the modern age, and now see the greatest threat to Western civilization since World War II. The West is under attack from the Third World nations in conjunction with the Eastern Bloc, who are quickly attempting to lay claim to as much of Europe and North America as possible, with the intent to flood massive amounts of their populations into the West in a new wave of international colonization. We know what it means when all of these nations have backed Ross forces and are running interference on the creation of Zion. While they claim they care about human rights, they actually care about suppressing any resistance against their last forces openly in the fight against Israel, as they know they are losing the physical battle on the ground. As they have allowed the propagation of a massive anti-Israel movement throughout the West, bolstered by foreigners from the East who obviously support a more Muslim and Eastern-dominated West, and have created a massive landslide against pro-Western democracies and their indigenous populations. This is completely unacceptable. The West has now been massively inundated with anti-Western movements, communist, and Muslim extremist movements that hate their own nations and sympathize with the Eastern nations and religions. This is a takeover of the Western nations, and we have a massive treasonous movement among these nations, forcefully dominating many Western governments via rigged elections, who intend on holding on to power to continue the furtherance of this agenda as their top priority. Time has a standard and a standard holder, and rest assured, there is no and never will be a so-called State of Palestine. It is anomalous, and an unacceptable red line in global affairs. As such, the Western nations with global cabal-controlled governments such as Canada, Australia, France, England, Ireland, Spain, and Germany, to name a few, are pushing the world to the brink of a new world war, and a catastrophic era. We know they are all agents of Ra and the forces of the transhumanists. Their atheist agenda makes that quite clear. These forces are quite content to use Islam to run cover for their plans, as the atheists and Muslims have a common enemy: God. That is, Christianity and Judaism, who are sanctioned religions of God, who has taken the physical form of man and has gone by many names: El, Yah, Jehovah, Jupiter, to name a few. Yes, they are all the same being, the same God, and the being that actually is God. Ra is the impostor, a false god that attempted to take over existence, that by all standards will forever be considered the real Satan, the leader of a rebellion against God, who has attempted to use an ancient system interface known as the quantum matrix to manipulate reality and dominate human development. So let us inform you as to what will happen if the cabal nations continue to try to force a victory for their side. Soon after the establishment of such a so-called state, the United States will suddenly and miraculously develop encryption hacking technology that will allow them to assert control over the entire world's nuclear stockpile and military forces. Once this control has been asserted, they will begin regime changes all across the globe, dismantling the militaries of Russia and China, and taking direct physical control of the entire world's nuclear arsenal. If these nations attempt to physically intervene, the missiles will simply be launched and detonated in space. If Russia, China, North Korea, India, or Pakistan attempt any organized resistance, they may be disabled with some of their own nuclear weapons. Otherwise, these regimes will have new democratic governments established and begin a reset in their affairs, and be permanently denuclearized. Soon after, Israel will annex Gaza, the West Bank, parts of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq. Any resistance will result in those nations being totally debilitated. The Gaza population will be sent into Egypt, and the West Bank population will be allowed to migrate farther east into Iraq, Iran, or Afghanistan. These militaries can have their entire force, every piece of hardware, sabotaged electronically. They can be rendered inoperable or have their ammunition detonated in place. Their command and control systems can be disabled, bank accounts can be emptied, radars can be rendered useless, communications and internet access totally severed, and all means to resist a modern military completely removed from afar. Computers themselves can be given a self-destruct command that will cause them to light on fire, anything with a battery of sufficient power output can be caused to explode. Military units will be able to be given orders via their own defense networking systems and locked out to coded orders only, being effectively removed from their own chains of command without them even knowing, and having carried out orders sent to them electronically, before anyone even becomes aware that they were deployed. Drones can be launched and controlled via automated systems. Targeting data can be derived from the GPS coordinates of electronic devices and computer IP address locations. Bunkers will be able to be locked, sealed, have their power cut and communications locked out, effectively turning them into tombs. There will be no one, and nowhere that is safe, and those subject to these conditions will have brought this upon themselves. They are playing with fire, so go ahead and see if we are bluffing over this. Go ahead and try to continue to tell yourselves this is all just a delusion or something that has no basis in reality. We can't wait to see the looks on your faces. Take a look at what has been coming to light, what is going on behind the scenes, and ask yourselves again one last time what you think is real or not. What do you think all of this means, and how long will it be before reality comes crashing down on you? How long can you continue to try to deny the implications of things like this? It turns out that aliens are capable of more than just fancy methods of propulsion, and that is only just the tip of the iceberg of what is possible. Not only that, but it turns out humanity has a dog in the fight, and we are that dog. The governments of Europe, Canada, and Australia that have been assisting this effort will be expected to step down to their oppositions, and a series of new laws will be expected to take effect that will begin the reversal of their agenda, with the same outcome for their militaries should they attempt any physical resistance or refuse to comply. In fact, it's starting to look like this will all be happening regardless. It's just a shame that so many Western governments must wind up on the wrong side of this great victory, so consider that time is running out to get on the right side of history. Know that time is managed, and despite paranormal means being used to try to create a new timeline where the West loses the Cold War, our side has the high ground in time, and as long as we use that, we cannot be defeated. For our allies out there, know that help is coming. The great intervention event is imminent regardless of what form it takes. As the line must be drawn here, this far, no further, and we will make them pay for what they have done.